So let's talk about some watercolor techniques. So I'll be taking you in this class all about the colors that we are using and some techniques to work on the class project. So let's start with swatching some colors that we are using for the autumn palette. They're very limited colors that I'll be highlighting. You don't have to worry about very specific shade, but then if you have something very near to it which is matching, we can get started with same. Okay. So the first color that I'm gonna swatch here is the gomboge yellow, or you can also use a lemon yellow, light lemon, right? So, or you can use that as well. So this here it is the gomboge yellow that I am swatching. Once that is done, the next I will be trying out is Indian yellow. Indian yellow is a bit oranges in shade, which is very near to orange. So you can have that as the next one, or if you don't want, you can mix your own orange as well. The next in line is the orange shade in itself, right? So you can try to use that one, and if you don't have, you can also go for cadmium red light. Okay, so as I was saying that you can use cadmium red light, which is the next shade that I am showing you guys. So this is cadmium red light. I have that from White Nights. Okay, and I'll show you in a bit. You can also use Golden Deep from White Nights. It looks like bit of a second color, which was Indian yellow, right? So something between Indian yellow and the third one. So it would look something like that, Golden Deep. So if you don't have these color, you can also use the golden color. Okay. Now the next color that we are gonna swatch is Scarlet Lake. Or you can use any shade of red that you have. So we don't want a pinkish shade, but what I'm looking for is more on the red side. So Scarlet Lake would do the job. So don't use anything like carmine or crimson, right? So don't use those shades. So those are more on the pink side. What we want is on the red side. Okay. So the now next I'm doing is burnt sienna. So we'll start our brown shades now. So we'll start with burnt sienna. So these are to be used at the darker portions of the class project. So we'll be using burnt sienna, burnt umber, Van Dyck brown, and for the most darkest parts of the glass projects or shadows, I'll be using Payne's gray or neutral tint. Okay. So the next one in line is the burnt umber. So I'll be using the burnt umber color next. And I'm not mixing these colors. What I'm doing is I'm directly picking them from the tube. So I'm not mixing them at all. Okay. I'm just taking a bit of those paints in my palette directly from the tube and then just swatching them as it is. So I'm not mixing them. And also you'll see that while working on automated painting, we really don't have to mix those colors. We just have to pour those colors in order. Okay. So this is the burnt umber. The next color that I'll have to swatch is the Van Dyck brown. So if you don't have Van Dyck brown, I don't want you to worry about it. What you can do is you can just mix a little bit of Payne's gray or neutral tint in your burnt sienna and you get this shade. So this is more on the chocolate side. Right? So this Van Dyck brown shade is little bit on the chocolatey shade. The next one that I am using is neutral tint. If you have Payne's gray, you can feel free to use Payne's gray. I am here using neutral tint. For the class project also, I'll be using neutral tint. So that is neutral tint. And I don't recommend you guys to use black directly. If you want to go make your own shade of darker version, then you can try to make some ultramarine blue with your burnt sienna. That will give you the darkest shade and it will be somewhere close to your black or neutral tint or Payne's gray. Okay. So that you can do, or you can try to mix all your primary colors in order to make that. Now we're gonna go into green shade, and this is the color that I'll be swatching, which is green light. It's from Selenium. It's my absolute favorite color in green. So that's green light. Okay. The next color that I have is sap green color. So that's sap green. Now, green color, the light green color, you can also make by mixing lemon yellow with a very light tint of blue color. Okay, so that also, if you make, you'll get that color. This is the sap green color. Sap green is available in all the brands, so you can go for sap green. The next I have is I'm you making this green color a little bit darker. Okay, so what I'm using, I just want to make a olive green or hooker's green color, right? So what I did was, so you can, if you have those olive green or hooker green, you can directly use them. If you don't have them, just mix a little bit of burnt sienna and neutral tint in your paint's gray, and you will get that color. So basically mix any shade of brown in your green color and you'll have a diluted version of the green color, right? So this is more diluted, as an toned down version of your green color, which is a bit darker, right? So you can go ahead and do that. So the next color that I am swatching is the blue shades, right? So there are multiple blue shades that I you can use in your painting. I suggest you, recommend you to go for by Persian blue or indigo, right? So these are some colors, and then if you want to go more darker in your green, then the color that I just showed you, the Persian blue, right? You can mix that Persian blue with your green shades, and then you get the most darker version of the green, right? So this is just a darker version of green that I created. The earlier blue was the Persian blue color. Okay. Now the last that I am doing is blue indigo. Okay, and if you don't have those shades, you can go by any. So you can also use cobalt blue, azure blue light, right? So you can use those colors as well. And if you don't have any of those shades, you can also serenial blue is also good. If you have that, you can use that. And if you don't have any of those shades, you can actually use ultramarine, but then I won't recommend ultramarine a lot because it's a little, yeah, so ultramarine is a little granulating in nature. So if you want that effect in your painting, like have a granulating sky or something, then you can use ultramarine. But so if you can just go by any other color, so cobalt is fine, indigo is fine, but then very diluted version of these colors, because indigo and Persian are very actually darker shades. So just go by cerulean blue or cobalt blue, and we should be good. So as I was showing you, we are actually going to paint some skies, some bokeh effect in the background, right? So for that, we'll be using these shades. So these are all the shades that we'll be using on in our autumn painting. So the top line is basically for creating the autumn effect. The bottom two are mostly for creating shadows or trees or some background. Okay, so these are the palette that we'll be using continuously. Now let's go ahead and learn some techniques that we're using throughout the autumn classes, right? So there are some techniques that we'll be using, such as wet on wet, wet on dry, how to create those bokeh effects, right? So they will create. So what I'm let's swatch. So we just do a just wet a rectangle or square area in your sketchbook, or if you're doing in a paper, that's also fine. Okay. So I have just wetted my whole paper, and then I'll be putting some colors over it. So I'm putting some gamboge lemon in that. On top of that, you can put some Indian yellow or golden deep or cadmium red light. So yeah, it's your choice if you just want to play with it. And I'm not trying to mix those colors, right? So I have just dropped some gamboge, then lemon, and on top of it, I'm just dropping some cadmium Then I'm gonna go ahead with some brown like shadow shades, right? So let's assume that these are trees and we want to create some shadows around it. So we need some darker version, we need some light versions also. This is Scarlet Lake, right? So I'm putting some Scarlet over there, and then I'm gonna go for burnt umber or wet deck brown, right? So those shades also are important. So we want to make a combination of these shades to look it more like an autumn. Okay. And then because autumn is completely so we will also have these half autumn things, right? Where the autumn has not taken over. There are still few leaves which are green in shade. So in those cases, I'm gonna just drop a tint of green here and there. It is up to you how you want to play it, right? But yeah, this all technique that we are doing right now is all wet on wet. So, and I'm not trying to merge any color with anything, right? So I'm just dropping those colors in the spaces. I'm not mixing them also. So this is all what you have to do to create an autumn effect. And these are the colors that I have just swatched above for you, right? So that's the only color that I'm using, nothing else. So this is all what we are gonna use for creating an autumn effect. Now the next that I want to explain you guys is wet on dry. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a wet paint over a dry paper. Okay. And then I just clean my brush and I'm dragging that color down by just so this is a wet brush, so it doesn't have any color now. What I did, I just made a one stroke of that Gamboge lemon, and then I just washed my brush, then dragging that color all the way down. That is what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just dragging my color all the way down. This is called as wet on dry. So which is wet paper color on your dry paper. Okay. So now it's gonna take some time to dry off. Until then, we move to the next exercise. And I'm gonna show you as in how to actually when we say okay, I want you to make soft edges, right? So what we did for wet on dry is very similar to how what we say is like making soft edges. So what you do, make one line of the paint or any darker color and then apply similar technique. So what I did, I just dipped my brush in water and then swiped across the line that we created, right? It just gives that smoother effect. So your now the line that we draw is not hard edge line. It's become a little softer because we washed down that tone. Okay. So now let's make some trees. So for making the trees, you can use the size 4 brush also. Or if you're not comfortable using this brush, you can go for size 2 or size 0. Or if you have a linear brush, then you can go by linear. So what we want to remember is we want to make these trees a little broken, and the tree trunk will always be broader from the bottom, and as it goes up, it's gonna go very thin, very slim and thin. Okay. And then as many branches as you want to take out. So variations, right? So everyone has a different style of painting tree. Now you can try a couple of these exercises, right? Or whatever I have showed you guys here, you can try to do with the different colors also, right? So you can just play with it. And then once you have drawn that first wet on wet, right? You can draw a tree on top of it also. Okay, that's what we'll be doing in the actual class project. So here I'm showing you multiple such trees together, right? So you can, if you want, you can actually leave those trees bare also, because in autumn all the trees have already fallen after changing the color. So there's actually no leaf left on the tree, right? So these are bare trees also. So that's what we're gonna do, right? I hope you guys are enjoying these lessons. I highly recommend if you're like beginner, then just don't take a lot of stress. Just enjoy what we are doing. So your painting routine should be very enjoyable to you, right? And just play with it. If you don't get right, that's okay. Practice couple of time and I think you'll get there. Okay. So yeah, see these painting that we'll be showing. So we have done trees, and I have done those trees after. Okay, here also we have used those similar kind of trees. Then we are gonna make one jungle where we making multiple such trees and then bare branches, right? So that's what these trees are about. So you will get to know all about them in the actual class project, but then this is something it will look like. Okay. So there are next set of exercise. I also wanted to show you guys as and how to do the bokeh effect in autumn, and then some background trees and a leaf also will do as in how to create that. Okay. So we'll see as in how to do a bokeh effect. Okay, so before we actually go to bokeh effect, I also wanted to show you guys one leaf. Okay, so we'll just paint one leaf for so just sketch any shape, size leaf that you want, and then we're gonna see as in how to make a autumn leaf, right? So I am wetting that leaf now, and then let's start with what we learned in the first technique, which is wet on wet. So after I wetted and see my, because I wanted to show you guys that it's wet, I have just tinted it with some colors. You don't use, you just plain water and then drop some yellows in it. On top of the yellow, it's just up to you how you want to make your tree look. So you can put some cadmium red light. You can make some golden deep or scarlet. In some places, you can also do brown shades, right? So any brown shade. If you want to go a little darker, use Vendig brown and burnt umber. If you want to keep it light, use the red shades, right? So right now I'm dropping some golden deep here, Indian yellow and golden deep. Okay. And then I'm slightly clearing my brush if I want to change the shade, right? If I want to keep the same shade, then I don't actually clear my brush and I use the same brush as it is. But right now, because we are doing green, I cleaned my brush in water, right? And now we're gonna do some browns. So now green and brown, if got mixed, it's gonna be very muddy. So I just washed it, and now we used a burnt sienna version. Okay, I just don't want to go lot of dark here, so I dropped in some burnt sienna. So you can also do a variation that your leaf is lighter on one side and then going darker on the other, right? It's just up to you as in how you want to make that trees. We will also be going through some exercises where actually you learn how you want to paint an autumn leaf very detailed. So there are a lot of classes that involves autumn tree. I just wanted to give you an overview about how to go about it, right? So that's what we are doing. Now we're gonna see as in the leaf is very, very, very wet as of now, right? It will take some time to get dry. So before we draw some pattern on the leaves, I just showed you guys as in how to draw pattern in that area, which is already. So we did some wet and dry, which is already dry now. And if you see, those strokes are perfectly fine, right? So you can do similarly very same thing in the leaf also. But then once it is dry, what will happen if it is wet and we put some colors? It's gonna just spread, right? So to avoid that, we are going to wait until that is dry and we'll learn another technique and then come again and then do the detailing on the leaves. Okay. So right now I'm wetting another portion here where we'll be doing some bokeh effect. Okay. Again, same thing. It's all same, right? The techniques are all same. So we do wet on wet for the base layer. Then we drop some colors, but when drop colors, we drop those colors in a circular motion. Okay, so you drop some colors in a circular motion. That's how I have created bokeh effect. Okay, and then if you have some darker version, then you can do darker also. And I'll be showing you in class project. This is done in a very, very detailed manner. So you don't have to worry about if you're not getting what I'm trying to do here. Okay, you'll come to know all about this in the class project. Okay, you can use the lifting technique, you can do as I told you, or if you want to go darker version, then you can just do darker version on top of it, right? It's gonna just give a very different effect. So you can pick up the paint, you can paint darker, or you can just paint around basically in circles, right? So just leave that one part and then paint around it. That is also possible. So there are multiple ways of creating bokeh, and then we'll have lot of class projects where we'll be seeing how to create those bokeh effects. Okay. So just enjoy these projects. So enjoy these little things, and then you'll know that in no time you are creating your own masterpieces. Okay. Now what I want is basically we do those trees in the background, right? So I also wanted to show you guys those trees in the background. So I've just took a larger brush with that area, and in a swipe up motion, I'm gonna just drop some yellows and then do a different shade. So that's like your autumn trees in the background. Okay. And then we soften that bottom. So it looks like there are trees at the background. Okay. And I just want to tell you that don't touch that. Okay, so don't try to mix them with each other. Just leave them as it is. So let the colors do their work. Okay. Now if you want in the back that we created a background, now let's take above trees and then you can put those trees here, right? It's just a combination of those that we will be doing. Now my leaf is dry, so let's go ahead and then do the detailing on the leaf. So you check your leaf. If your leaf is already dry, then go ahead and do that. So guys, just one thing very important, right? So if your paper is not 100% cotton, then it's not gonna stay wet for that long for you to do wet on wet. But for this autumn projects, we actually need our paper to be wet. Okay. So here also if you see I have made some darker browns in some shape which I'll be softening as the above exercise. Just above the leaf there's an exercise that we did, right? So what is softening basically? Just dip your brush in water and then just swipe your brush on that edge of that paint. It just takes away that paint, right? So that's the same technique that we are following. So you can add veins in the leaf if you wish to. If you don't want to add, then just leave it. That's fine. Right? So hope all is clear about this class. So this is all the colors and the techniques that we'll be using in the class to make some absolutely gorgeous autumn landscape. So I can't wait to get started. Let's join me in next class where we are gonna do day one of autumn painting. See you guys there.